everybody. Welcome back to Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 6, Episode 12. We start off this episode by seeing Bronwyn pick up Todd from the airport in a goddamn dinosaur costume. I guess that's her way of, just keeping things alive in their relationship, even though she's still upset. But you know what? She does say some of the bad things outweigh the good, or some of the good things outweigh the bad in their relationship. But as the two drive home, they are discussing what happened while Todd was away. And of course, Bronwyn has to talk about how she got involved in some shenanigans that Todd keep warning her about. And, she's telling Todd, about how, Meredith exposed her, telling some secrets that Whitney had told her. And Todd feels like everybody just needs to sit down and have a kumbaya moment. And, of course, Bronwyn comes up with the idea of having a party or an event for everybody to just restart the relationships over and kind of just clear all the air of and grievances that they have against each other. So in this next scene, we are at Whitney's house, and she's on the back sipping some wine, and I guess it's not looking too good for her and Justin at the moment, because she recently saw that a big deposit or a big purchase just came out of their account. And now with the money coming out of the account, it's taking a bit toll on Whitney, because even though they went into this business together, Whitney didn't listen to her intuition and just not do the business altogether. So now she's buyer's remorse. She's regretting the things that she's put into this business with Justin. And as Whitney is also continuing to explain, she's the only reason why she even did the big buyout or merged her beauty line with another company is because, Justin is finally believing in her product and her project. So, that's why she ultimately said yes. And I can get Whitney in this moment, but if your gut is talking to you, honey, listen to your gut. It never leads you wrong. But now we're sitting here watching you trying to fight to get your name out of, off the ownership, and you having to take some of the assets from that company and, try to go back and, you got to start back at square one. But after that touching moment between Whitney and Justin, we all segue ourselves on over to where Heather is, and we're in Heather's house, and we can see Heather, she's getting her third child ready to go off to college, and she's getting her room ready. And we also get to see Heather's other daughter, Georgia, who's already out of the house, help her decorate, her sister's room so she can get ready to go to Tampa. And as the two ladies talk about, their experiences growing up, Heather's marriage, and then her wanting, her daughter to have her own experience in her own life, we then get to see the last daughter, Annabelle, come in and see the surprise in her bedroom. So after that cute moment, we then get to see Bronwyn. She's at home. She's stuffing pride flags in envelopes, and all because she's a supporter of the LGBTIQA plus community. And of course, now there's a law in Utah that those flags cannot be held or hung at government building. But also in this moment, we get to see Bronwyn spend more time in bond with her mom, which does look good. That they went to a sex shop, got the pride flags, and she's helping her do this, although it's kind of coming against what she believes in. But like she said, as long as this helps Bronwyn, she's 100% down for it. And then we also get to see in that cute bonding moment, her mom finally validate Bronwyn being a good mom, a good person, and that she doesn't have to worry about what others think because she is good. Which of course this makes Bronwyn feel great about herself, and I hope that's some of the stuff that she needs to hear from her mom in order for her to stop trying to find validation in other people. So after that scene, we see some of the ladies, Angie, arrive to one of Bronwyn's events. We see that Angie is early, so she's got to do some waiting for some of the other ladies to arrive. But I think Bronwyn was there already. Don't know why she didn't just call Bronwyn and just let her in. Now, as some of the other ladies are on their way, we see Brittany, Heather, and Whitney in the same car, talking about today's event because they don't know what they're walking into. But Brittany does fill them in on meeting Meredith at the park and those two having the talk that they needed to have regarding the plane incident and, being able to be accountable for the things that led up to that issue, as well as apologizing to each other. But all of the ladies arrive. They see Angie standing by herself, and they end up joining her. They're all dressed in their forgot what period, but their period clothing. And you know what? Mary's not there yet, but Mary's on her way. But the show gets started anyway because we see Bronwyn finally enter the scene. And now with Bronwyn stepping into the scene, announcing that, she's practicing or studying for her citizenship, of course we get Lisa, she got to be a Debbie Downer about something. And no, Lisa, it's not just about, Bronwyn getting her citizenship. Why don't you wait and see? But as the ladies enter, they get dressed just a tad bit more. Bronwyn had a few more costume ideas or additions to what they were already wearing. So as the ladies finish adding on to what they already have, we figure out more of what this party's all about. Basically, spilling the tea party. Basically, they're going to drop all of their grievances about each other, what's been said online, what's been done behind their backs. They're going to get all of it out, and they're just going to toss it in the water, so to speak. And then, they're going to let all of their animosity and negativity that they have about each other, they're just going to let it go. I think this was an actually good idea. Some feelings may, some of the stuff may get high, but I think this will be a good start for some of the women to actually reset their relationships with each other. Now, as the explanation is going on from Bronwyn, we get to see Mary arrive. Of course, Mary's feeling some type of way, but it's a funny way because even though she's like, look, this looks so ridiculous, but you know what? I'm going to participate anyway, and I got to keep saying this. I love that Mary is finally participating in things, just to have more fun with the girl. Now, as Mary walks in and they all sit down, actually eat a little bit first, but they all sit down and, they get the instructions on how to play the game for the event. We see them, or Heather, get a little bit nervous because the last time they tried something similar to this, it did not go well for Bronwyn, and, tensions got kind of high. See the ladies start to write out some of some of the stuff that they may have spilled about each other. And Angie goes first. Angie tells, everyone that she didn't believe Lisa bought a horse from the Kentucky Derby. I don't really think Lisa bought it either, because Lisa, for what? Who are you trying to impress? Please stop being this elitist that we can't stand. And once Lisa hears this, you know what? Of course she's going to say, yeah, I bought a horse. It's actually bought. And you know what? I might get me a second one. So, the ladies continue with this event. After that particular conversation, we see Angie get up. She takes her box of tea and she throws it into the ocean. Basically, the tea is spilt. Now, after Angie went and spilt her tea, we then get Brittany. Now, she just says that I don't have any tea that I may have necessarily spilt about other people, but she wants to know who spilled the tea about me flirting with all the men on the boat. And somebody basically went back and told Jared. Now, basically, we see that it was Whitney. Whitney didn't necessarily run back to her husband and tell everything. She basically is saying, you know what, I'm proud of her. She can move on from Jared. She can have fun outside of Jared. And then we all know guys gossip just like women, if not just a little bit more. Justin ran back and told Jared. So Brittany spills her tea because just like everyone else, I'm tired of talking about Jared too. And now I think it's Heather's turn to, drop some of her tea. And basically Heather just, wants to know how Bronwyn feels about that rumor of Jared making out with someone and, farting at the same time. Heather just wants to see where she's at with it. And of course, you look at Bronwyn's face, she's like, girl, that's not funny. So just go ahead, throw that damn tea box over. And after the ladies agree that that's not funny, Heather throws her tea box over. And after Heather's tea box went over, we now get Bronwyn, who's about to spill her tea and going to try to hash that issue with her and Whitney, because her and Whitney had a lunch and it was about Meredith and what happened on the plane. And basically Bronwyn saying she was trying to be a friend to Meredith. She went back, told Meredith what happened and, what the things Whitney has said about her drinking and other issues. And basically just kind of threw Whitney under the bus. But, she wants to spill that tea and basically get that over with Whitney. Now, this issue does spark a small argument because Whitney's not trying to let that go so easily. Whitney does feel betrayed. I can understand that because that's a private conversation. But I also understand Bronwyn in this moment. I'm Meredith's friend. And even in the flashback, she's like, look, you already know Meredith's going to yell at you for 5 hours about it. So you might just want to hurry up and get ready for it. And in that moment, you got to understand, if you don't want somebody coming back and being mad at you about it, just don't say nothing. I agree with Bronwyn. She's not the keeper of Meredith's thoughts. She can't help if Meredith gets mad. But if you didn't want Meredith to find out, you shouldn't have just said it at all. But I do get both sides. If I'm having a private conversation with you, that's where it stays. But understand that is Meredith's friend as well. So certain things you might just want to leave out so she doesn't doesn't run back and tell too much stuff that you don't want Meredith to know. And then the conversation then turns to Whitney and Meredith now about to have that argument too, because Meredith is still on her soapbox. She didn't do as much as everyone is saying she did, and everybody's trying to get Meredith to understand, honey, yes, you did. You taunted this woman for 6 hours on a plane. And the women are trying to get Meredith to see that maybe you might have just been a little bit too intoxicated if you cannot remember what you did for 6 hours on a plane. Which also, that brings Whitney to start calling Meredith names like alcoholic or a pill popper, because she's tired of them gaslighting her, making it seem like she's the one that's, not remembering correctly what happened, but she's tired of being called a liar. So Whitney just blurts out, well, you know what, fine, if you're going to call me a liar, fine, then you're drunk, you're a pill popper, you have an issue, which then leads Meredith to go bring out her presents. And we all see that the presents were drug tests, with urine. Now, I wouldn't have gotten everybody a drug test, just me, if I wanted to prove a point. As we see, she got each drug test for every woman that tried to make an accusation of her being, either a drunk or being on drugs, because as she said, she previously stated she may have a drink every once in a while and an occasional gummy. But Meredith, I get your theatrics, but let's land a plane. Let's just land this and just deal with it. But once again, the ladies are trying to get Meredith to understand what she actually did on the plane. I think Meredith understands that, but because she doesn't want to look bad to her community around her, she's just going to deny it and act as if she kept her cool on the plane. And I don't know why they keep trying to make her realize what she did. Meredith realizes what she did. She's just trying to, paint her own picture so she doesn't look bad to her people. And, even after all of that argument, the gaslighting, Meredith just denying everything. She's still not going to take accountability for what she did. And she's just like, you know what, there's not going to be any resolution to this, so we might as well just move on. So Bronwyn then shows the ladies another surprise, which is a nice dress that she had put together of the Constitution running down her dress. That was a great idea, by the way. It looked cute. The whole point was to create the arguments, create the, the chaos in order for them to, come together and sign the Declaration, or their version of the Declaration, and to not be so, vile towards one another. All the ladies come up with their own amendment to abide by. And of course, Meredith ends it off with, something snide, hear ye, stop the reactive abuse. Now, I'm not sure why she said reactive abuse, because even though she's reacting, I guess she's reacting to what Brittany has said, but that wasn't necessarily abuse. You know what I'm saying? But okay, whatever, Meredith. So, guys, the episode ends, and, like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.